All right. So title of today's message is Practical Wisdom for Fathers. And when does fatherhood start? Does it start when you see the baby for the first time? I believe it starts at conception. Now, the first challenge I'd like to give, how many of you, that fits the bill, you have not held your baby in your arms yet, but you are a male? Okay? That's you, Jaime, John, Jonah, that's you. Paul, yes, that's you. Paul, that's you. There are many of you that are not fathers yet, but someday you will be a father. I'm not saying that you're expecting right now. That surprise, everybody. No, but one day this will be you, and so what I'm giving you right now is tools for when that day comes. So one of the things I'd like to say first off is that to walk the journey with your wife. When she finds out that she's pregnant, it's important to let her know that you're going to be right there with her. She needs to know that she can count on you, that you will not abandon her or her child. Okay, so most likely it's going to be kind of in the early phases of your marriage, and so maybe there's not the certainty there. And so through this walk, you need to let her know that you are going to be there. I don't know if you realize it or not, but during the pregnancy, there is a higher chance of infidelity in a marriage. And a lot of people don't know that, but it's important, fathers to be that you protect that relationship that's there. Any amens? All right, so walk the journey with your wife. Be at appointments when you can. A lot of people might think, hey, just send your wife. This is her thing. She can go to the doctors. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes your work will not allow you to go. But I want to encourage you. And I'm talking to Jonah, my son. I'm talking to Thomas as well. I'm talking to people that are going to be in this situation. I want to encourage you, if at all possible, go to the appointments. Why? You get to see the pictures of the baby and you attach. You get to be there in difficult times. Maybe there's difficult news that's heard. Do you want your wife to go through that alone? So I want to encourage you to do your best to go to the appointments if you can. It was kind of neat. I heard that you were actually at an appointment with your wife, and so it can be done. All right, so be at appointments when you can. Carry her load as she goes through nesting. Have you ever heard of that term before? That means the baby is coming, and so what do? You begin to prepare the room. You begin to get ready for this baby coming. Now, it's important in times like that, men, that you don't just kind of say, hey, this is her thing. Do what you can to help, whether it's helping getting the crib together, getting the room all set. Be there. Yes. Also, I want to encourage you to be her hero. Hero has another title. You know what it is? Pickle Go-Getter. You got that? All right. How many of you fathers right now have gotten something for your wife that was strange? Any of you? Okay. Sarah, do you mind? What was the strange thing that Esther wanted when she was pregnant? Pickles and ice cream. That lovely. She says no. What was yours, son? Green olives. Yeah. So, as your wife is going through these things, be their hero. Part of that is also being empathetic. Okay, so your wife is going to be going through changes, difficulties. So, because of the extra weight of holding a child, she might have extra weight that's there. Her feet might need to be rubbed. Give her the best chair. Treat her like a queen. But some of you are there like, well, what if she kind of begins to expect this? This could be very dangerous. It's okay. I'm challenging you. Treat her like a queen. And this is all about helping her, and this is helping prepare you for fatherhood as well. Okay, let's move on from expecting fathers to fathers of newborns. So the day that you hold the baby in your arms, my advice is, number one, receive the gift. How do you do that? How do you receive the gift of this child? I think it's holding the baby in your arms and just taking time to be amazed by the wonder of your child. I don't know if any of you fathers remember the first time that you held your baby and you took his hands and his little fingers and you looked at the tiny fingers and you just said, this is amazing. And you smelled the new baby smell, not the diaper, but the new baby smell. Just take in the wonder of this child. And as you do that, thank God for this baby that you hold in your arms. Your child is not a burden. He or she is a gift from God to you. So thank God for your child. Also, I know I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to say it. Attach and bond with your child. Some fathers, especially if this is your first child, you may feel like that baby is a space invader, a foreigner into your household, changing everything. But the truth is, this baby was a part of you, carries your genes, and as such is already part of your family. So don't be distant. You may feel like if I hold this baby, it's going to break. Don't be distant. Just bond with your child. Love your child. All right, so you receive the gift, and then take responsibility. Don't ever let me hear come out of your mouth, this is woman's work. Ugh, ugh. Right? Let me give you another tip. Watching your child is not what? Not babysitting. It's called being a parent. So help take care of your child. What does that look like? Change the stinky diapers. I don't hear too many amens out of the guys out there. Woo! Even gag reflex and all. Change the diapers. Feed your baby. I tell you, don't miss out on the joys of feeding a bottle to your baby. That's a special moment. Help dress your children. Here's another thing not to say. In the middle of the night when your baby is crying, do something about your child, woman. It's not a good idea. God has given you both the responsibility of caring for your child. So, again, sometimes in our culture there's this idea that the baby is all the woman's responsibility. But no, if that was the case, there wouldn't be a husband and wife, right? There would just be a woman, and she would do it all. But God put two people together to care for a child because the baby would need them both. All right, so we looked at receive the gift, take responsibility, and also, this is very important, don't forget about your relationship with your wife. Okay, so the baby is born, and some people are distant from the baby at first, and then other people go whole hog in, and everything is about the baby to the point that the relationship between a husband and wife suffers. And so I want to encourage you to enlist support. This is very important. If you're near family and they're good family, take advantage of that. Not in a bad way, but use the gift that they are. God, I believe that God has put them there for a purpose. I know we were so blessed to have Aunt Joni and Grandma with us. I mean, they were up there in years, but they still helped us many times watching our kids, and that allowed Melanie and I to pursue our relationship as well. I want to encourage you to plan weekly date nights. Is that possible? Yes. It's not easy, but it is possible. Maybe you hire a babysitter, and you say, well, we don't have enough money to hire a babysitter. What could you do? Well, if you've got other friends that have babies, why don't you say, hey, we'll watch your child this week if you watch our child next week. You work together. But it is so important that you work on the relationship and leave time. So plan weekly date nights. Also set boundaries to protect your relationship. Now, I want you to get your stones ready, okay? Because some of you are going to want to stone me just right in a minute, okay? early on, with our first children, we went through a program called Growing Kids God's Way. And one of the advice that they gave us, I think, was absolutely crucial. And it was this: when your baby is born, spend time with it, but as soon as you can, try to develop a good sleep pattern for your baby where they are in their own crib. Okay? The reason for this is, if you have your baby all the time in the bed with you, what do you think that might do to your relationship? You might see your wife 2 years, 3 years from now. And it's also, you may think, well, yes, that is bonding time, and that is important. But also, maybe it's good for your child to learn how to go to sleep without being in the same bed. Maybe your child would get more sleep if he was by himself or she was by himself than in a bed where people toss and turn as well. So go ahead, get your stones out, stone me now. Okay, I'm ready. That's just me, just my advice. You don't have to follow that. It's not in the Bible, but just encouragement. And I know it was a blessing to us as well. It's okay for your baby to cry a little bit. All right, so set boundaries to protect your relationship and let your children see your love for your wife. Okay? Here's an important thing, that your kids see you do this. Do I have lipstick on? Maybe. So, and give them to my children. No. When I was this is a side story, not part of the message. When I was a kid, we went to Six Flags one time, and there was this music show going on, and there was a lady that came from the stage. It was like part of the act, and she picked out this little kid, which just happened to be me. I was like 6 or 7, and she kissed my cheek, and she had this bright red lipstick, and I was just absolutely mortified, at that time. And so it's one of my things. I don't like lipstick on me. I like the kiss part, though. All right. So we digress. Let's get back to the notes. Point: let your children see that you love your wife. It is very important. It helps your child as well. Okay, so we've talked about expecting fathers, fathers of newborns. Now we're going to move on to fathers of toddlers to middle school. Now, one thing that arises here is the need for discipline. So let me give you some practical advice. Set realistic rules, guidelines, and boundaries. But please, do not exasperate your children. You know what? Ephesians chapter 6 talks about this. Don't go too far. So what are we talking about? If you've got rules that you want them to follow, you need to tell them very clearly. So, for instance, your child, if you want them to stay in the yard because you don't want them to get ran over, you say, here is the yard. If you go past this, you're going to have a timeout for 10 minutes. Do you understand? Repeat it back to me. Okay? Make sure it's very clear. And when they do it, you enforce it clear. Here's what happened. This is not me. I'm not angry. You just did this, and I'm here to protect you, so we teach you this way. Let it be clear. Now, that's the opposite of them never going outside before and going and seeing a ball on the other side and just going for the ball, then you blowing up at them and say, why did you cross the street? And they don't know about cars. They don't know about any of those other things. They didn't know that they were going against something that you said. So be clear about what your rules are. All right. Are we caught up, Jonah, with the notes? Okay. Oh, yeah, I accidentally have all of those up there. Okay, other thing with this is, are your standards too high or unreasonable for the age group? Okay. How many of you saw a movie? Go and advance one more just to see, Jonah. Yep, keep going. There you go. One more. And one more. Okay. Are your standards too high or unreasonable for the age? How many of you have seen a movie? I don't know what it's called, but the term Mommy Dearest, does that ring a bell for anybody? What's that movie called? Oh, Mommy Dearest. Okay. I know it well. No, I actually only saw a little part of it. But the little part that I did see was this young child, and the mom is a famous actress, and she comes in and is expecting her daughter to scrub all the floors, to shine them, just sparkling, and it's not perfect, and she just loses it on the child. Now, we got to be careful that our expectations aren't so high that they can't do it. For instance, it's probably not a good idea to have your toddler park your car for you, okay? That might be a little bit too difficult, or your toddler to cut the grass for you. It's dangerous. They don't know how to do it. So make sure that what you ask is age appropriate for them. All right. Also, be consistent. And by that, I mean, don't let your discipline be mood-driven. So one day, if your kid in the house is tossing the ball back and forth, it's okay. But the next day, you've had a bad day, and you don't want them throwing the ball, and so you yell at them. What is the message that your kid gets? I don't know what to do. It was okay yesterday. Why is it not okay today? So make sure that your rules are not driven by your mood. Let it be driven by your desire to teach your children, to help them, and to protect them. Another very important one, don't leave the disciplining up to your wife. Now, my wife and I worked through this at the beginning. I had a higher tolerance level, and my wife came to me very honestly and said, Joel, I don't want to be the bad guy. I feel like I am always the bad guy. Any of you ever felt that way before? Yeah. And so, guys, I want to encourage you, don't make your wife do all of the discipline. It should be something that is shared between the two of you. Any amens? All right. Okay, and where am I amidst this? All right, here we go. Good. No one wants to be the bad guy. Instead, work on being a team together, a united front. Also, concerning discipline, never discipline in anger. And with that never, I'm going to put a caveat, because you could probably come up with something. If they're about to be ran over by a car and you just happen to be angry, don't say, well, Pastor Joel said don't say anything. Let's wait. But generally speaking, never discipline in anger. How do you know if you're going too far? I think if you step back and you say, when it's more about you and how they have impacted you or embarrassed you than it is about true right and wrong, then you may be going beyond what you're supposed to do. Let's say that you're in the midst of things, they did something, maybe they called you a name, or maybe they embarrassed you in the store. In the moments like that, you need to give your child a timeout, but you also need to do what? Give yourself a timeout, right? If you are hot mad, you need to back away until you can cool down and do an appropriate judgment, okay? When you do that, connect the punishment to the wrong being done. Make sure that the punishment fits the crime. And think through what the goal of the punishment is. What is it designed to teach them? Will the punishment help them learn that? For instance, I want you to tell me what lesson you as a child would get to this. Okay, you're playing in the house, and you were running and playing chase, and your mother's vase is there, and you accidentally knocked the mother's vase off, and it crashed down. She comes in and is upset way up here, okay? And so father comes in. He's mad. So your father yells and says, you are grounded for a year. Okay. And then, let's say a week later, your son or you tell a lie at school, or maybe you take something from the store, and your mom and dad sit you down and say, Joey, that's not good to do. You shouldn't do that. What's the message that they get from that? Lying, stealing, that's bad, but breaking something, of mom and dad, that's the real evil that's there. Why? By your volume, by your actions, you speak to them what is important, what is right, and what's wrong. So that's why it's important to kind of, if you can, detach yourself from the anger so you can give a right punishment that fits the crime. Okay, so we looked at discipline. Let's move on to this. Remember that your actions will speak louder than your words. For instance, if you say church is important, but you don't go, what's the message that they get? Church is not important. If you say treating your wife is important, but you don't do it, what is the message that they get? It's not really important. So be a man of integrity. Remember that your children will always be watching you. They will emulate you. They will follow your lead. You're going to see your behavior through them. You're going to see your attitude through them. You're going to see your words coming out of their mouth. And sometimes that's ouch, right? Your actions coming from them. On a positive note, let them see you reading your Bible. Let them hear you praying. Let them observe you serving God and others. Let them observe you loving your wife. Okay, now your actions are important. And though your actions speak louder, your words will also be remembered. So be careful what you say. Oh, be careful, little tongue, what you say. Right? Because your words will stick. I want to ask you a question. What do you want, or actually before we do that, what do you remember that your father said to you? Some of you might remember a kind word. Some of you might remember something mean that was said, right? In anger. You're worthless. How could you ever do this? You're this and you're that. Those words stick and they hurt. So although your actions are more important, be very careful of your words because your kids will remember those words. So on the other side of things, make your words count. For some guys, it's kind of hard for them to verbalize how they feel, but I want you to find ways to verbalize your affection and feelings to your child. I pray that none of your children will ever be able to say, I never heard Dad say the words, I love you. Or I can count on one hand the times that I heard my dad say, I love you. How do we change that? Just every day. Tell your kids, I love you. Tell them things about them that are special to you, how they impact your life. Those kind of words will also stick with them as well. Okay, we talked about your actions, your words. Also want to encourage you to make affection a natural part of your family. I pray that for you, your kids will always say, Dad always has a hug for me. They may not say it and may even shy away from hugs sometimes, but they need it in their life. And the truth is, if you don't give it, somebody else will, right? I remember many times, and my kids probably could attest to this, even after I disciplined my children, I would hug them, even when they're like, get away from me. I would hug them and say, I love you. What I'm trying to teach you is this, and I just want you to know Daddy's going to help you until you figure this out. And you communicate. So even after discipline, make sure that they know that you still value them and that you still love them. All right. So we talked about actions, words, affection. Next, I want to say, have fun with your children. I was thinking about my relationship with my dad, and you know what comes to my mind when I think about my dad when I was a kid? I remember playing pitch with him. I remember playing basketball, horseshoes. I remember those things in my life. What were those? Was he teaching me some important lesson? No, the big lesson he was teaching me was that he loved me through the playing of things. Maybe it's playing cars with your kids. I remember playing on those ones where it shoots through the little wheels that go around and goes over the hoop. You played those before? That was fun. Playing with my boys, my girls. with that. Also, you might even want to play Nerf guns or Nerf swords with them, right? Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Thank you very much. That was just a blatant attempt to keep you awake. Sorry. It's okay. Take time to play with them. Those are the things that they are going to remember. With your girls, maybe that means when she says, "Hey, do you want to go shopping?" That they say, "Hey, sure, let's go shopping, Barbie. This will be fun." Okay. Is this beneath you? No, these are the memories that your kids will have. Another thing, you might want to do with your girls, play house. Or you might want to invite them. Very good, thank you. Take time to dance with your girls. Make them feel special. Make them feel like a princess. Those are the things that they are going to remember. Make memories that they can draw from when times when they feel lonely or unloved by others. May they always be able to say, "At least I know that my daddy and my mommy loves me." Okay, so all this is about being a dad who is there. Physically, you show up to the game. Emotionally, sometimes fathers, when your daughters are crying, you may want to not be around because you feel like, what can I do? Even if you don't know what to do, even if you don't know what to say, just simply sit there and be there for them. Spiritually, supporting them, strengthening them in their walk with Christ. Mentally, helping them with their schoolwork at times. And then kind of the last thing in this area that I want to talk about is prepare them for the future. That means give them responsibilities, chores, and work. There's no kids up here to say amen to this one. But our kids know how to do the laundry. They know how to clean the litter box. They know how to cut the grass. All of these things. And we started young with them, teaching them this. And it wasn't just to make our lives easy. It was to help them, because one day they're going to work. One day they're going to have a family of their own. And it's important for them to be able to know how to do those things. Also, with preparing for them for the future, don't give them everything that they ask for. I remember going with my mom to the store on many occasions and asking on many occasions. And she gave me a 2-letter word. No. And I would cry. No. Still no. And, I'm sure there were times that she did. But she taught me that things have value. And that helped me. Hopefully I'm not spoiled today. But if you get everything you want, you are going to be spoiled, and later on in life, you're going to be disappointed. Teach them the value of serving and giving. Okay, so let's move on to the next section, fathers of preteens to young adults. I want to encourage you, don't neglect the difficult talks. What am I talking about? The sex talk. If you don't talk with them about it, what? Others will, okay? Their very knowledgeable 13-year-old friends might. Instead, you want to be the one to do that. I'm going to give you permission. You can say that Pastor Joel said this. You have the right to see their phone, their computer, what they're watching on TV. Why? If you don't protect them, who will? Right? There's no one else that's going to help them and protect them. It's a proven fact that your mind is not fully developed until somewhere in your 20s. And so as a parent, we want to help them, protect them from this temptation on what they see. Communicate clearly your desire to protect them and why you say no. Okay, I'm going to give you something that is said a whole lot. I've probably even said it before. When your kids are doing something wrong and they ask why, you say, because mom and dad said so, right? And that solves it. And there are times when maybe that needs to be said. But I want to ask you a question. what if that's all you ever did? All you ever did was say, because mom said so. What happens when you're not around? Do they know why something is wrong? No, you haven't taught them. All you've taught them to do is to obey you. That's all that you have taught them to do. So it's important that if you have to say no, try to explain why. And the reason for this is to build their morals. So I think you've got a line there, and I want to give that to you exactly. The ultimate goal is not blind obedience to you. Say that again. The ultimate goal is not blind obedience to you. The ultimate goal is for them to develop good morals based on the Word of God that will help them when they are not around, when you're not around to tell them what to do. Okay? So that's why when they want to go to the party and you just say no, instead say, I'm concerned about you. There's probably going to be drugs there. People are going to tempt you to do things that you shouldn't do, and I'm trying to protect you here. Explain to them to the best of your ability. Everything you do, everything you say to them needs to be done through the lens of your love for them. So if you say no to going to the party, it's because you love them. If you say no to them watching that movie, it's because you love them. If you say no to whatever, it's always got to be because you love them and are concerned about them. Going with that, sometimes they're still going to make mistakes. They're still going to do the wrong thing. And I want to encourage you, don't rescue them from every consequence of their sin or unwise choices. Instead, help them see a path to the correct mistakes. So let's say your teenage son gets his credit card, and Jonah, this did not happen with, by the way. Just want to be clear. They get their credit card and they go out and say, hey, this is fun. And they spend $1,000. They don't have but $100. What do you do in moments like that? Do you bail them out and pay the $1,000? If you do, what do they learn? That daddy's going to rescue me if I get in trouble. If they have to work that back, maybe you spot them and they have to work that back, what do they learn? I'm not going to do this again. This was difficult. Right? So don't rescue them from everything that they do wrong. That means if they get in trouble in school, instead of automatically siding with them. My parents had a rule, if you get disciplined at school, you get disciplined at home. It was like double. It's like, yikes. It's kind of opposite kind of what we see today. So amidst all of these things, let your love be a constant in a world where their emotions are going to be fluctuating up and down. So they're going to be going through a lot through the teenage years, but let your love be the one thing that doesn't change. When one day they're on top of the world, and the next day they hate life, and sometimes even you. With God's help, men, I'm encouraging you to be a rock that's beaten by the waves, but stands firm in its place. I remember there were times that some of my kids were angry with me, said hurtful words, and even, kind of like going like this on me. But I held them, and I loved them. I said, Daddy loves you. No matter what's coming, you let them know that you're going to stand firm and be that rock for them. So sometimes there's consequences that go way, way far, and they get into sin. What do you do in times like that? I want to encourage you to speak the truth in love. Not say you're a miserable, rotten brat, but to say, hey, what you did is wrong, and this is what's going to happen. I love you, and I don't want you stuck in this sin. Second point with this, hate the sin, you know the rest, right? But love the sinner, right? So when it comes to your kids, hate that sin that they're involved in, but still love them. Maybe there's this feeling inside of you like, well, if I love them, is it me saying that what they're doing is right? I don't think that that's the case. I don't believe, I said, you are not compromising your morals when you love them, even when they're in sin. You compromise and hurt them when you say that their sin is okay. Because when they no longer yearn for freedom from that sin, they're going to be stuck in that. So here's what you do. When they're involved in sin, hey, son, I love you. I am always there for you. What you're doing right now is wrong, and you're going to have to pay for it later. And I'm not going to change how I feel about that. But I want you to know, no matter what happens, I still love you. So you can stand for the truth and love someone at the same time. These are not contradictory terms. They're complementary. They work together. Okay, last one. For fathers of married to married with children. I want to encourage you. How many of you are in this stage right now? You are a father of a father, right? Okay. Allow them to grow. Don't micromanage their life. Allow them to step out and be the parents that they're supposed to be. And then, when I was starting on this message, there is one main nugget that God wanted me to impart to you on this, and it's really the heartbeat of this message. And it says, don't give up on them. Don't give up on them. One scripture I'm sharing with you today, Luke chapter 15 and verse 20, the story of the prodigal son. The prodigal son, did what he wasn't supposed to against his father, got involved in sin. But verse 20 says, he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him. So if he's a long way off and his father saw him, what does that tell us? The father was looking for him. He hadn't given up hope. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son. He didn't say, yeah, he's coming. Well, let's let him come. I'm not going to go meet him. He didn't do that. When he saw him, even after everything that he did, he ran to him. Goes on to say after that he embraced him instead of giving him the cold shoulder until he said his whole line about how he had messed up his life, until he had made up for everything. The father didn't wait for that. He embraced him and kissed him. And I think that is a model for all of us as fathers. Don't give up on your children. Be looking and waiting for them. Now here's a really spiritual one. Answer the bat phone. Answer the bat phone. How many of you ever saw Batman and Robin, I think it was in the 60s or 70s? I know that Bruce Wayne just passed away. What's his real name? Adam West. Thank you. You're helping me out. But do you remember the scenes? You got Dick and Bruce Wayne. Okay. You got Bruce Wayne and Dick. They're in the other room and they're talking with some friends. And then all of a sudden you hear the bat phone, and the camera zooms to the bat phone. It turns red and rings. And then you see Bruce Wayne making some sort of excuse. Hey, let's go into the library. And so they run right at that moment and they pick up the all-important call. I want to encourage you. What? Okay, the butler, Alfred, yes. So I want to encourage you as grandfathers, if you're in that stage, always be there ready to pick up the phone. I know for me that is a huge thing to know that if I'm going through something in my life, I can always pick up the phone and I can talk to my dad about an issue that's going on in my life. Be an encouragement to their marriage. Don't be one that's saying bad things about their spouse. Be one that's encouraging their marriage. Continue to love them by loving their children. This is probably the easiest one of all. And when I think about this, I think about my grandpa who's gone on to be with the Lord. But when I think back to him, I remember that he was at my games. I can see him to this day leaning on that chain link fence as I played my baseball game. I remember getting done, and he would take me to the concession stand, buy me a Coke with that nice ice inside, and we would sit together and we would talk about the game. When I think about my grandpa, I remember that when we would go over to his house, he would take us to the local place to get a biscuit, whether it be a sausage biscuit or whatever else. I remember that my grandpa was my first employer. I started cutting his grass, cleaning his gutters, advanced to a flea market salesman for him. This is in the high enterprise. But I'd like to end with my grandpa. He had the ability to take 2 words and make them carry more love in his mouth than any dictionary would ever give to these 2 words. Those 2 words were, when I called him, he would all say, "Hey, buddy." And I can still hear that in my mind today. Just 2 simple words. But when he said them, I knew that my grandpa loved me and that he cared for me. And that should be our goal as well. If you're in that stage of being a grandfather, that you have that type of connection with your grandchildren. Okay, I'm going to give you the big message here today. 3 real easy ones. When it comes to fatherhood, don't just stand in the distance. Get in there. Get involved with your kids' lives. Secondly, stay in there. So get in there, stay in there. Don't let anything take you out of that equation. Be a part of your children's life. And then lastly, don't give up. There's going to be times where your children wander this way or that way. Don't give up on them. Keep praying for them. Keep lifting them up to the Lord. Could you stand with me? Let's pray together. Father, we thank you for your example that you have set for us and how you have loved us. Lord, we thank you for the story of the prodigal son, where the father is always looking, always waiting for his son to come home. And Lord, I know that we're all in different places. Some of us have children that maybe we're not in a good relationship with right now. Lord, I pray for those that are in that state, that you would just renew hope inside of them, that they would not give up, that they would keep praying for their son or for their daughter. Lord, I pray for those that are starting out on this journey of fatherhood, that you would lead them by the hand. Lord, that they would make a huge impact on their children's life. Lord, I pray for those teenage years, for fathers, that you would give them wisdom, discernment, patience. And Lord, for all of us men that you have called to be fathers, whether it be of biological children or those you've called us to invest into their lives, Lord, may we be found faithful. May we follow your example and make a difference for you. We ask it in your name, Jesus. Amen.